Michael Jackson back from when the Jackson 5 had to do without him, and him going solo from the Thriller album and of course that Off the Wall album. I've got some sports analytics guys in studio. This is going to be fun.
This is Good Morning Mumbai with Rishi K.
Michael Cianciosi is out of Melbourne. He's a sports scientist and he's from Catapult Sports. Over the last couple of years, he's helped grow the company's footprint in the Asian market. Michael, welcome to India. Your first ever trip. How are you doing, mate?
Good, thanks. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Great. Always fun, wonderful to meet an Aussie. And never a dull moment when you guys are around. And Rajagopalan, a sports technology enthusiast and a decade of professional experience in an industry that has seen a lot of traction off late. Venu, welcome to the show. Good to see you, buddy. Yeah.
Thank you, Rishi. Good to see you again.
How's the Pune life treating you without me on the radio?
Oh, yeah. We really do miss your voice in Pune, man.
I could hear that for my entire lifetime. Now, wearable devices and how GPS tracking is becoming the future of sports analytics. Let's talk about that. We know there's a lot of development in that area.
Yeah. So just to give you a brief intro about Catapult. So this company is been around for a long time now, and we noticed that wearable tech is going to be the future, wherein GPS-based tracking and more of physiological tracking can be combined together to give some really good inputs to coaches and players at the end of the game, at the end of the training sessions. So we have this this variety of devices that we fit into the player's body, which is basically a small vest that they wear inside their jerseys. And during the live games, you could have some live data coming into the broadcaster room or to your analyst sitting on the bench, and you could throw up reports during halftime or after the game and compare some data and analytics in terms of how the player has performed. So this basically takes the guesswork out of the equation and gives you more objectivity and more of quantifiable data to work with, and how much of training load should be given to a particular player, and how do we manage training versus match day loads. So that's where the future is all about.
And Michael, this tech has got to be non-intrusive. I mean, we're not just talking about sports like cricket, but Aussie football, for example, where there's a lot of contact. And is it small in size? Is it something that just meshes in easily into a sports person's gear?
Yeah, definitely. It's kind of probably about 4 or 5 centimeters by about 2 or 3 centimeters. It's kind of ingrained in Australian sport now. So if you look at any AFL player, rugby player, they're all wearing them. There's a bit of difficulty early on getting players used to wearing them, but it becomes part and parcel of what they do as they kind of get used to it. So it's definitely ingrained in our sport.
And you haven't had any unfortunate incidents whereby you've lost it or it's been broken and things like that?
Actually, when I worked at a club before I was at Catapult, we had a few instances where we lost devices to lawnmowers. So they fell out of their jumper, and then a $3,000 device was taken over by a lawnmower, which was good fun.
Oh, that's life in sports analytics. Here's Roxette, The Look. We're back with Venu and Michael in just a bit. Roxette, The Look. I just thought if you're a sports enthusiast, this would catch your fancy. These guys are from Catapult, and they design wearable tech, which actually adds to sport in such myriad ways. You can actually track a player's data, help him rehabilitate from injury. It's Michael Cianciosi and Rajagopalan.
This is Good Morning Mumbai with Rishi K.
So, just like car models, do you have various models of this wearable tech, and what does each one do, each variant?
Yeah, so basically we have 3 or 4 categories of devices. So, we have something for the entry level or the university level, which is known as the X4 device. We have something known as the S5, which is the most widely used across the globe. And, that gives up a lot of interesting information. So these 2 are the GPS-based ones. We also have a local positioning system device, which is more of indoor use devices. And those are really handy for broadcasters because, in indoor sports, like even a kabaddi, for example, you could track maybe the heart rate data of a player who is, getting into a raid. And, when he comes out of the raid, you could track the player load, which is a proprietary, formula that we have derived from Catapult, which is basically nothing but a cumulative number that is generated with all his movements, which is forward, backwards, and, sideways and up and down in all the 3 axes, which probably maybe Michael could give some more insights into as well.
Yeah, Michael, for example, injury and how a player or an athlete deals with stress, fatigue and injury, how are you interpreting the data, using the data?
I think the biggest part of the technology is using it over a long period of time. It gives us some really important and cool insights into an athlete. So tracking the data over time, you know what a player can do and what his maximum values are and what he's used to doing. So as soon as you see a spike in load or a spike in his internal load, you know that he's at a high risk of injury. So we need to bring him back. And then on the flip side of that, if you know how hard he can work, if he's coming back from injury and he's not hitting the same levels he did before injury, then you know there's probably reason there to speak to the player, speak to the physio, and need to bring him back through some different pathways to get him back to that maximum level so he can perform how he did before he had the injury.
But in India, a sports scientist is more like an extended version of a physiotherapist who works with an athlete. In Australia, sports science involves more technology than anything else. Explain that.
Yeah, I think so. There's kind of two branches in sports science. There's the sports science analyst who does the big databasing stuff, and there's a strength and conditioning coach who's more practical. In Australia, every team will have one or two of these analysts that basically their job is to maintain a database and look at this data day in, day out, and try and make some inferences from it. So it's been there for probably 5 to 6 years now, and it's only getting more and more kind of common in the market.
And you would imagine thousands of people are studying this in colleges across Oz.
Yeah, there's universities all over Australia that are pumping out sports science students.
Amazing.
Left, right and centre.
Okay, pictures of the gentleman coming up at HRISHIKY on Twitter. You can take a look. You have any comments, you can reply back. HRISHIKY on Facebook. You could like the page, leave a comment in the timeline inbox. Facebook.com/radio1.mum is our official page, the most liked Facebook page across all radio stations in Mumbai City. There again, leave a comment in the timeline or inbox or right under the pictures, and I'll read them out on air. Messages and back with Venu, Rajagopalan and Michael Cianciosi.
94.3 Radio 1.
Rich and marks don't mean nothing. This means a lot, though. Sports analytics and sports technology. Fascinating discussion with Michael Cianciosi, the sports scientist from Australia, and Venu Rajagopalan, the sports technology and the man who's really taken the sports analytics to another level.
This is Good Morning Mumbai with Rishi K.
Radio 1.
So, man, this is some interesting stuff that you've been doing. I mean, in your sports performance analysis consulting career, you worked with teams like Kings 11 Punjab, the Kalyani Bharat football team, the Maharashtra Premier League. Fun moments or some tense, terse moments? Run us through that. Yeah. What kind of analytics were you doing for them?
Yeah. So, when I wanted to branch out into the sports industry, I think, I wanted to kind of look at a common ground. So technology was something which I was already associated with in the IT industry. And then I was always a keen sports enthusiast, and I still play a bit of club cricket as well. So I wanted to marry the two together in terms of sports and technology and look at what's the common ground. So sports analytics, or predominantly video analysis and statistical analysis. That's what got me hooked to it initially. So I started some of my freelancing work with a few clubs, in cricket, and I also worked with a few other companies before who were into video analysis. And so being a part of those sports teams was really fun because, it's like you're really not doing a job. It's you're living your dreams.
Sure.
So it's like, traveling with the team, working with the coach, doing team meetings together, showing players videos of, the opponents and stuff. So that's the high part of it. And, of course, there are lows as well. When your team loses, it's really not a good, happy dressing room to be in with. But then, it's a part of life. So it's been really a big journey for me, coming from that background. And now with Catapult in the picture, I thought this is probably the next level of technology which is going to change the sports industry. That's why, it got hooked me.
Explain to me some real-life examples of using sports analytics. For example, you would sit with the coach, and if there's a batsman who is continuously getting out to deliveries outside the off stump, for example, flashing outside the off stump, would you be able to play all the dismissals and things like that? Yeah?
Yes, absolutely. So basically, the role of mission is possible on a particular player or a particular team. So with video analysis, it's more visual. So it's a better way of learning and better way of understanding and giving feedback. With analytics combined with statistics, it's kind of complementing the video that you're showing to the coaches as well. So when the two marry each other, it's like a complete set of information that you can rely upon. And there's nothing better than showing a player their own videos and, kind of working on their strengths, as well as showing them possible weaknesses which they can work upon over a long period of time. One example which I can quote from Bharat FC was that, we were really good at passing the ball, in our games, at the football club. So after maybe, halfway through the season, we realized that the passing is not an issue, because every game after game we had an average passing percentage, successful passing percentage of say around 85%. But it was holding the ball and holding possession which was the real issue, and we used to just give away the ball. So this was something which we gathered through the season and we kind of worked upon. So we spent more time in the training on possession games, so kind of how to hold the ball and not give away possession easily. So those are the kind of insights that you can build upon.
Sweet. Here's Nelly Furtado. Say what you want. More sports analytics, sports science, and sports technology up ahead. Don't go anywhere. Nelly Furtado, say what you want. Michael Cianciosi, the sports scientist, and Venugopal Rajagopalan, the sports tech geek, as well as sports analytics expert, is in studio.
This is Good Morning Mumbai with Rishi K.
Radio 1.
So, Michael, I mean, you spent almost 5 years with a team called Carlton Football Club, which is the highest level in Australian football, as a sports science analyst. Exciting times there. And just like Venugopal, would you quote some examples of how you helped them in various departments?
Yeah, it was a good time to be there through university. So we played in some final seasons early on, which was probably the highs. Seeing a team that I actually barracked for go through the finals while working with them was pretty cool. As well as similar to Venu, we saw some lows with not doing so well towards the back end. The cool part about working there was kind of as GPS tracking kind of started. That's when my tenure started there, so I had the opportunity to kind of pick up the technology from the start and try and drive it and make it my own. So what we did back then to what we do now is very different. So it was kind of cool just to start collecting data, and I think there's a lot of data you can collect, and we found that there's some stuff that's not really that useful. So we got rid of that stuff pretty quick, and then we started to learn what's actually useful and what the players understand and what the players like to look at.
Yeah, and your thesis was factors affecting recovery kinetics in professional Australian football players, and that sounds like a very, very fascinating thesis. Kinetics and recovery kinetics in particular.
Yeah.
Obviously, a lot to do with injury, and football players get injured all the time.
Yeah, we just wanted to look at how, basically, again going back to what I mentioned before, how players how they're tracking before a game, so how they go into a game in terms of preparation. And how long it takes them to recover after a game of football. And basically from that, if we know how long it takes them to recover, then we can train them accordingly to make sure we're not overtraining them or, again, like you said, increasing their risk of injury.
And in terms of working with data, you're doing a further degree in statistics.
Yes.
Is that part of the sports science aspect, or is it just a passion that you have on the side?
Probably a little bit of both. I enjoy numbers and spreadsheets, and yeah, they kind of just go hand in hand with each other. So I'm a bit of a sucker for punishment.
Very well put. And right now, Catapult's tech is being used at the Boston Celtics, Melbourne Victory, Melbourne Storm, all of those. There's a lot of AFL and even NBL leagues. Yeah. So what's most exciting? Is it basketball? Is it football? What's the sport that's closest to your heart in terms of sports science?
I think, from my heart, it's Australian football. So I played it all my life and watched it all my life. So for me, seeing the guys that I watch on TV week in, week out, that's probably the best part for me.
And lots of data to work with there, yeah?
Yes, lots of data.
Awesome.
Lots of data.
Messages and back. More conversation with Venugopal Rajagopalan as well as Michael Cianciosi on sports and analytics.
94.3 Radio 1.
Beyonce and Coldplay, Hymn for the Weekend. Venugopal Rajagopalan and Michael Cianciosi are talking sports science, and Catapult is this outfit that they represent. Some amazing data that's collected via GPS, wearable technology, and they interpret that data for enhancing athletes' performance as well as helping them recover from injury, upping their game.
This is Good Morning Mumbai with Rishi K.
Radio 1.
So some work that you've done currently in India, teams that you're representing, where the tech is being used, and obviously your goals for the future, Venu.
Yeah, so basically we have seen a kind of a sudden splurge in growth in India in the last couple of years. And we've seen that there's a very huge acceptance of these kind of technologies now in India. And now that the sport is being really commercialized with the ISL and the IPLs coming into the picture, so there's a lot of professional angle to it as well. The teams really want to do well. The franchise owners are pretty, wanting the coaches to be accountable, the players to be accountable because of the money being spent in. So we are working with 3 to 4 ISL clubs right now, and they are pretty good users of the technology as well. And we're looking at how they're analyzing the data in terms of both training data as well as match data, and how they're kind of looking at when what is the best way to keep their players fit and really match fit and get their peak performance on the field. Plus, we are also looking at some broadcaster level, tie-ups as well, because there's nothing better for a consumer to see. Maybe as an example, I could quote that if Virat Kohli has hit a last ball 6, what was his heart rate back then? So so all these kind of visualizations that we can enhance the consumer experience for broadcasters. So that's something which we are also working upon at the moment.
Are you using that in sport in Australia? Things like that. What was the athlete's heart rate? When he crossed the finish line, for example, things like that, yeah?
Yeah, for sure. We're rolling it out in the NBL, which is our basketball league, and the AFL. So they're the first 2 leagues that Catapult's kind of broken into to try and push stuff to broadcast. So it's quite new and quite exciting. But yeah, it's definitely coming, and it'll be, I think, seen across the world in sport pretty soon.
Yeah, and what fascinates me is, one is the use of technology, which is, if you look at the camera side of it, there are drone cameras and all kinds of stuff. But the fact that data can be used at a human level to track human activity, I mean, that in itself is absolutely fascinating. And the marriage with broadcasters, I guess, is just a natural marriage of convenience as far as this tech is concerned. So for you, man, what's the most exciting sport that you've worked on? Again, not from, hey, I played cricket from when I was a child, but a sport that lends itself to analytics very easily. What do you enjoy most?
I think generally, if you look at team sports, that's where the maximum amount of data can be leveraged upon, because you'll have obviously more data points in a team sport than individual sport. However, having said that, there are definite usages in individual sports as well. For me personally, I really love analyzing cricket and football from my own perspective. Yes, because completely 2 different sports. Cricket is a team sport, but also has a camouflaged individual capacity to it, and football being a complete end-to-end team sport, with all the coordination needed between, say, your back 4 and your front strikers and stuff. So it's pretty interesting in terms of analyzing what kind of data can be used to look at team strategies and stuff. For example, if you have just considered a goal in football, you could use this GPS technology to see the distance between your defenders, if it was too large or too much to kind of allow the strikers to get through. So that's the kind of data you can look at. Or you could even look at how much effort has been put in by your defenders, your midfielders, your strikers, in terms of your player loads, in terms of your distance covered. So all of this adds up to all that you discuss in team meetings, and you could look at leveraging that aspect.
Superstar, for last leg of conversation with Michael Cianciosi and Rajagopalan up ahead. Sports science, sports analytics and data is what we're talking about here to the cause with So Young. Video killed the radio star? I hope not. Michael Cianciosi and Rajagopalan are grinning, and I like that. Sports analytics, sports data, sports technology with these guys from Catapult.
This is Good Morning Mumbai with Rishi K.
Radio 1.
But there's one thing that we haven't covered, Michael. Quantifying player load using matchday data versus training data, and how it can be managed effectively, comparing volume versus intensity, using all your wearable tech as well as the data that comes out of it.
Yeah, I think from what we've found, I guess, in the years of research with this technology, is how far you run doesn't always give a good indication of how well you play. Quite often in sports in Australia, guys will run 18, 19 kilometres and not touch the ball, and what that kind of opened in terms of sports science was, well, maybe we need to start looking more at the training data. So a big trend was moving towards making players train the way they play, which kind of makes sense. So being specific to, if a player runs 10 kilometres in a game with 5 kilometres of sprinting, well, then we need to make sure he's able to cope with that in training. So a big trend now is making our sport training specific to what they do in a game. So there's no point running 50 laps at a slow pace, because that's not what they do in a game. They do powerful changes of direction, jumps, slide tackles. There's all these different movements that need to be done in training. So that's kind of been a big trend, is making sure we get our athletes training the way they play.
It's interesting you would say that, because I was seeing Roger Federer train in the off season, and look how well he did at the Australian Open. And all of his training was not about running long distance and, taking 50 rounds of the court, but doing short bursts. Because, there's the surface plays fast at Melbourne Park, and, he has to just do those short bursts to the net and at the baseline. So it's amazing what data can do for an athlete's training. So, Venugopal, if we were to get in touch with you guys, what are the touch points where we can find out about all this exciting technology and how sports broadcasters as well as teams can use it?
Sure. So you could visit our website, which is www.catapultsports.com, and you could get in touch with us using the APAC region.
Just repeat that again.
Yeah. So it's www.catapultsports.com. And you can just post us a query. Depends upon which region you are in. And you can get in touch with me individually on venu.rajagopalan@catapultsports.com, which is venu.rajagopalan@catapultsports.com.
What about you, Michael? Are you on Twitter or Facebook or one of those things where people can reach out to you? Yeah.
And I've just got a Catapult email as well. So my first name dot my last name at catapultsports.com.
That's Michael dot. Would you spell your surname out, please? Yeah.
CIANCIOSI.
Lovely. Guys, thanks for rolling by. This was fun. Cheers.
Thank you, Rishi.
Your seal with Killer.